Hello again, my friends. Once more, welcome back to the cellar. Welcome back to the layout. I've had a bit of post. We're going to have a very quick look at that. And I'm going to get on with some track laying. Move back into the light slightly. This bit of wood here. Anyway, on with the show. This is Leopard Street. Now, the first bit isn't post. If you've been watching some of the little clips I've put up as posts, you see I've been working on some coach interiors for these clerestories. I've now got working prototypes for them. These ones still need painting. I've got some upstairs that have been painted. I haven't fitted them down here yet. They're not perfect. First class section, standard class. They just drop in. They don't yet have the facility for lighting. However, because I can print these, they cost virtually nothing. So I'm going to print some, I'm going to paint some. I've printed some, I'm going to paint some. I'm going to fill the clerestories with them. Anyway, that's that out of the way. On the post, the first thing, yep, Veriboard. Yeah, 10 sheets of that. They are going to be used to build board controllers, but I don't need those yet. This is all about Operation Get Trains Running. So we've had a little delivery today from Rails of Sheffield. So I have, put them where you can see them, some more fish plates, plastic and metal, because I was running out. 4 more buffer stops. Platform 1, the little loco stub, and the other 2 are for the loco depot area, which is coming up. I've got a point and another double slip. Now, I've done previous videos showing how I set these up, so I'm not going to go into any great detail repeating that. What we're going to do, hold you back up a little bit and point down here, I'm going to get them done. I'm going to find somewhere to put the camera so I can speed up me doing it. And this is then going to complete the track section on this side. The goal for today is the double slip and the point wired in, glued down, with their wires hanging over the edge, yada yada yada, and the little stubs of track that come off them. So, as I said before, I put a little stub of track. Easy to show it. In fact, we come down here because there's one built in. Just got to move a few other things out of the way and we can have a little look. Then I tilt you back down again. Move the tin of paint. Anyway, yes. So this, the stub thing, it's part of the block detection system. If you're not doing any form of block detection, you don't need to worry about this. But I've got this bit of track so that I know if this is occupied, which is part of the block the points in. There's an insulating joiner because I want the track polarity here to be correct, even if that point is pointing that way, so the frog polarity will be wrong. But if there's anything sat in there, it's fouling a train trying to come round this way. So I know that's possibly a risk. If you haven't got block detection, that's what you're going to use your eyeballs for. So I'm going to get the next point, the slip goes here, the point sort of comes this way a bit. They're going to have some little stubs stuck to them as well. So I'm going to get all that done today. So, without fail, I'm going to go to the desk. I'm going to set the camera up somewhere near the desk so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to gather the implements that are going to be required, and I'm just going to get on with it. So I will catch you back in a mo. There may be a bit of a voiceover, there may be a bit of a music, there may be a bit of both. I haven't edited this yet. See you in a minute. Yeah, now this bit was supposed to be sped up footage of me correctly sort of soldering the point and then the double slip. Unfortunately, this turned out to be an absolute mare to do. You can sort of see bits of this going ahead here, and I reached a point where I gave up, went and had a cup of tea, came back downstairs and started again. So I didn't video that bit, but this is what you've got for this bit. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so after what can only be referred to as an absolute mare, soldering the wires onto the back of the slip and the points, which are now done, now I need to mark up the installation. So the slip is going over here. So the first thing I need to do is a small piece of track off of this point which I can just feed in like so. Yeah, it'd be nice to get some sleepers down into that bit as well, so I'm going to try and do that a little. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. There we go. So this is going to come out here. I've got a straight track setter because this piece is supposed to be straight, so I can do that. Run the rest of the sleepers down. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. There we go. Now, so that piece is going to go there. I've got to remove the sleepers from under there. I'm not gluing these in place yet. What I'm going to do is remove the sleepers. I'm going to stick all the track down, and when the track is stuck down and it's all dry, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go into that. This little stub on this side of the joint, so up to there, will be powered from the point. So what I'll do is I'll do what I did before. I will solder the fish plates. This little side here is going to be powered by the double slip. So again, I'll be soldering some fish plates. What I need to do now is work out exactly where this is going, so I can get the track cut in the right place. And I think that is going to be there. Now in practice, if this is off very slightly, it doesn't really matter, because this is the first bit that's going in. So I can datum everything off this. So I need to come into here. Yeah, it's going to go very slightly. Let's do that there and that there. Yeah, then come in and sever that properly, like so. Yeah, this needs to come back out. It's brought the fish plates with it, but to be honest, I don't care. Right, I'm going to come in, remove a few more sleepers. And that's going to be my little piece here. That bit I'm going to be using later. So the next job is dress the ends of the rails. Yes, the track cutters do a pretty good job, but what you tend to find is there's a very little burr on the bottom, and that makes getting fish plates onto it an absolute pain. And I also found it's useful to just do this across the tops. Sometimes you get a little burr on the top, which I also don't want. So that's that. Right, this can now go back into place. Before I put it back in, let's work out which of these sleepers I actually want to get rid of. And that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And now I'm going to do that again with a pen that I can see. So that's going to be in there. I want to get rid of that. Rid of that, 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 rid of that. That should do. I can just about make that out. A slight drawback of it being somewhat dark plastic. There we go. So trim these away to that one. And as I said, I will then slide some joined sleepers in later. But I want this to be down and glued first, because what I don't want is what I found certain joins have done. They've raised themselves. I've been watching Ian over at Trains of Thought as he puts in his new freight yard. I'll say very entertaining. What I've noticed he's got is he's putting sleepers under, like taking some of these, cutting the chair off the top and just putting them back under. I found that works if you're very careful, which Ian tends to be, and I tend not to be. But if you're not careful, what it does is it raises the join slightly, and then you get a train that goes along and it goes and it comes back down again. Now with diesels, yeah, probably not a problem. Big steam locos going at speed, yeah, that's going to derail. There's no two ways about it. That is going to derail at some point. That can get pushed down there. That. Yeah. Check that straight again. Now I have got it marked on the board exactly where I want this to go, and that is spot on, which is rather nice. So next, it's drilling the holes for the slip. Now, the first ones I'm going to do are the frog wires, which are going to be, yeah, they're off that sleeper. So if I do that to that, down here, I can mark these out as well. I need 2 wires in the middle, which is going to be about there and about there, if I can get those marked in. Do that, that. And then for the crossing, now the frog wires, what I need to do, down here so you can see what I'm doing, is a line between those, and I can mark out basically where I need to drill that, because I've got the track center lines marked. So that's there, that's there. They're going to be there and there. And the final one is, where do I need to drill the big holes for the servos? Now, this also actually has an advantage with this, of it should be in the middle. Now, I've got to do a bit of cutting on this actually before it goes in. I'll do that in a sec. So that's going to go across there, and the holes are basically slightly off axis of the thing. So if I put a big hole there, and then a big hole, just get to make sure I get this the right side. Yes, it is over the other side. A big hole there. They should work. Don't drop that. While I remember, the final modification to do on these is the removal of these outer bits here. This is one of those, unless you're sure you really want to, don't do it mods. But I think that side looks better than this side, so this is something I do. Yeah. It is a tad scary when you bear in mind what a double slip costs, taking a pair of cutters to it. Bits pinging all over the place currently. The tie bar is made of a much more rigid plastic than the sleepers, which is why it's going for a ping when the rest of it is behaving itself. Ping that. Let's just go to making sure it doesn't spring up into my eyes. As I mentioned earlier, I've modified these the same way I modified the last ones, so these don't have the springs in anymore. Does rather mean I can't actually run this until I've got it. Right, what I now need to do is go plug the drill in, set that up, get the appropriate drill bits on it, and drill some holes. And before I do that, I'm going to mark them with a different marker pen, because that green I've just used is fading by the second, which is, yeah, one of those slightly annoying things. Right, I'm going to drill some holes, then I'll be back. Okay, so some holes drilled. Now this should is the optimum word there, should now fit in. So that goes into that hole. Brown wire is the rear one. It goes into this hole. Well, it says rear one. It's not really the rear one, it's the inner one. That can get pulled through. That can get pulled through. Important to make sure they don't get tangled. And what I'm going to do then is just make sure this is actually laying flat where it needs to. The holes for the servos are in the right places, that sort of thing. And then I'm going to put some fish plates on it and connect it to the rails. Yeah, I might do that in a sec actually, but I just want to make sure I've got all this lined up first. So it all comes down here nicely like that. These should now go through the holes with a bit of luck. If they don't, the holes are going to get re-drilled a little bit larger, and the holes are going to get re-drilled a little bit larger, because they're not going to, they'll go in, but they're not going to go in easily. So I'm going to go up to 5mm, I think, from a 3mm hole. So bear with me a second. This also means I've actually got a little bit more leeway with how this is going to work. So apologies, noise for a second again. So that's that one. And then back to Mini Nunu. And I think I will put the fish plates on at this point. Something I found, I've got a little container that I keep them in. It lives over here. I can't actually get them out. I can't get my fingers in and grip the things. So yeah. Anyway, that will get restocked in a bit from the new packages. So what I need to do is metal fish plates onto this. Now, as I mentioned with the last one of these, the instructions basically say thou shalt use insulating fish plates on all rails. And normally I would. However, here this is going to power this little stub all by itself very nicely. And because I want it to do that, I need the metal plates. The alternative is I would have to give this little section here its own power feed. Now, interesting, I don't need that on the block detection as a separate thing, because if there's anything on that, it's pretty much on top of the slip anyway. So yeah, it's if the slip will register there's something sitting on it, because it's going to get its own feeds, obviously, which is what the two wires in the middle are. It's one of the things when you're thinking about electrical sections with slips and diamonds, is basically just make them their own sections. Life is so much easier if you do that. You don't have to worry about which section should this connect to or any of that nonsense. It just becomes entirely its own thing. Usually because you sort of get the question of, well, which track is it part of? I mean, is it part of this track or is it part of that track? And if they're separate blocks, how do you know? So here, right, let's get that in there. Some debris in the middle of that. Right. So that is now in. Again, check that it's straight. That's the main thing. So that bit there is straight. And then what I need to do is check the actuator holes work. And the way I do that is another piece of wire. I'll just grab myself another piece of wire. So now it's simple, and it goes through the hole. And basically, I see whether I can move that freely underneath. And that moves freely without any problems. And then this one, I suspect, may have more of a problem. Yeah, this one's not quite in the right place. It's very nearly. It just needs to go that way slightly with the hole. So rather than struggling with that later, what I'm going to do is re-drill the hole slightly. So carefully lift this. And this is where you have to be careful you don't catch the wires. If you catch the wires wrong, you can pull them out, and then you've got other problems at that point. Let's take that off there. That comes out. I just need to make that hole a little bit more that way. So what I'm going to do is put the big drill bit back in and re-drill it just slightly. And this is all, as I sort of mentioned, part of Operation Get the Trains Running. We'll have a think about that in a sec. see, that's now a bit more of a slot. So again, mini Nunu. And the weirdest bit was when Teletubbies was actually on TV. First time round, at least. I mean, I know they carried on for it for a while. When it first started, I was at university. So I had my, my then partner's daughter, who became my sort of stepdaughter at the time. And she liked watching it. And it was sort of noted that half the people that watched Teletubbies were small children, which is obviously what it was intended for, and the other half were students, who would watch Teletubbies all day, given half a chance. Right, I'm just going to grab a coach and do this. And obviously, Nunu was one of the characters in Teletubbies, I think, fairly sure. So yeah, so this would help if I put it on the rails properly. I have a point down there I can flick. So we'll come up here and then we'll run over whichever way this is set for. And what this point's going to give me, this road here will go off to the turntable. This road is going to go via another point and that'll go off to platform 1. And this road is a short stabling spur. But that's the idea. Anyway, that's straight. Happy with that. What I now need to do is fit the point, which is over here. And this is the bit I had real problems with getting soldered into place. This did not want to go together at all. So just making sure it's this set of sleevers here. That one to that one. And then that means the frog hole will be there. And these here are my wires for the feeds, which will go there and there. And then down here I've got the crossbar, which means a big hole goes there. Right. And I can't glue any of these down until I've got them both sorted. They can then go down together. I do want to do the stub rails as well, because this way, if this is stuck down, it's very hard to put track feeds here on another piece of track. If it's back here somewhere, it's not really a problem because I can sort of slide it in and then drop it. And the feeds for this section, which again is going to get a stub, it's going to be about a 6-inch stub, that'll connect to the slip. And again, there's the same reason, it's so I know I've got the like the little void area here. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm actually going to switch back to the other pen because they are going again. So that becomes a frog. These are diddy ones. That is the big one. Yeah, so basically, if I glue this down, I then can't easily fit this point. So that's why I'm doing it this way around. You get both of these in together. I'm going to put the little stub tracks in at the same time. But yes, Operation Get the Trains Running. This, as I've mentioned, I'm wanting to use the lower deck. To use the lower deck, I need all the wiring from the upper deck out of the way. I don't want to be doing that and then doing it again. So if I can just get these two little bits in, I don't have that as a problem. Just checking I'm not near anything that's going to be a problem. So that's there. That one. And again, I'm going to drill that as a pilot hole. And that is reasonably close to a cross brace, but hopefully not so close I can't get a point motor on it, because that would be annoying. It would be very annoying. So I'm just going to bigger drill bit and so on and so forth. Yeah, so if I can get all these wires in, the plan is then to terminate the wires. Excuse me, I'll just drill this bigger hole. There we go. yeah, the plan is to get this in, get these wires terminated. I can then power them up. Again, excuse me. And once they're terminated, the track is powered. Now, obviously the points aren't. So what I'm going to have to do then is fit the frog rails, which is fine. Fit the frog relays, sorry, not frog rails, and wire that up. And what I did previously on the lower deck, when I got to this point, I wired them for through running. So basically the point is wired to run dead ahead. And that is its default position. It will run dead ahead without power to the relay. And what I then did was put the point servos in and locked them, just manually positioned them to be in the dead ahead position. There we go, that's that in. Is that going to go down? Yeah. It is, but there's something under there, so I'm going to have to lift that in a sec just to find out what that is. Again, I'll just come over here a little bit more, turn around. Can I get that to work? Is that in the right place? Yeah, this one's still got its spring in. Because as I've noted previously, I can get the springs out get the springs out the top on these, so that shouldn't be a problem. So that works. Right, I just need to lift this slightly because it's not sitting flat, and the fact it's not sitting flat is because there's something got under here. So I'm now going to have to find a knife. There's my kniff. Yeah, there's something under here, and what I'm going to do is very, very simply, I'm going to come along here with it. I'm just going to cut a section out. I'm going to clean out whatever's under it, and I'm going to put it back. This didn't all get glue, if you remember rightly. I sort of went around with just little bits. So what's happened is part of this, as I've drilled, has lifted. Here we are, and the debris has gone under it. So if I just clear that out. Yeah, then that can go back in, and I'll put a little dab of glue on it at the moment because that's what I'm wanting it to do. Towards the ends, that'll do. Oh, fishy glue, fishy stinky glue. Right, so yeah, no, there's Teletubbies was apparently extremely popular among students. I suspect because it was being broadcast at a time of day students had only just gotten up, sort of mid-afternoon, and it was one of those programs that if you watch with a hangover, it takes on a whole new meaning. So yeah, it's just a little bit psychedelic. I will point out I was not smoking things you are not supposed to. I don't smoke. I never have done. I certainly don't smoke that sort of thing, so don't endorse that at all. I'm not saying do something you're not supposed to do, then watch Teletubbies and suddenly your life will find a new meaning. That is not what I'm saying. Right, so that can go in there. That will now sit flat. Hopefully that'll sit flatter anyway. We've got another bit lifted. I've got more lifted at this end that I'm going to have to deal with in the same way. Never mind. This is one of these things that's worth doing. It's worth doing instead of leaving and thinking I can live with that. Yeah, don't. This is one of the things I've learned on this layout, that if I ever build a bigger one in the garage, it's a lesson I hope to take with me, is don't bodge things and think I can deal with it. Don't bodge things. Do it properly. If you can fix something like this at the time, it's not a bad idea. And I'm just actually going to make this hole a little bit larger this way. So I'm just going to put that into there. Yeah. The wire was going through the hole all right, but it was a bit near the end. So do that, and it's now a bit more cleared. So if I do this, yes. So this is all about giving what I've referred to as phase 1 of the station, getting that in place. This is platform 1, which is the Parcels Road, 2 and 3, which are my two intercity type roads. Although to start with, they'll be the only platform roads, so they'll take everything. A short loco stabling spur. This is where the shunting engine will live, or where I can park a turned locomotive. And then the tracks and everything to the turntable. Now, obviously, the turntable isn't ready yet. So what I'm going to end up doing, certainly initially, what I've basically done is give myself a layout with two very, very long sidings. Because, as I said, all the points are going to be locked in direction. So I won't be able to... I'll be able to flick the points and move them for... There we are. See, that's sitting level now. That's better. Yeah, I'll be able to flick these points and play around with it sort of normally. But I'm not going to be able to run trains in. So basically, I've got these two roads over here are going to be big sidings. And that's fine. I can live with that for a little bit. What I've then got to do is build all the board controllers and things. But while ever I'm doing that, what I've got... Excuse me, I'll just reach past the camera a little bit to get this spare piece of track. Once I've got that, I'm in a position of being able to run trains on the lower level of the layout at all times, which is what I'm wanting to do. So this is going to come over here, which means putting the sleepers down a little bit more. That'll go into there, so I have to clip a few sides of these. As I said, this is the short section that comes in here, and I'll bring it to... How long have I done it on the track behind? I'll bring it to about here. This will do. And this is to give me, I say, just this short overrun section. And I'm actually going to cheat slightly on this as well. I'd say not bodging things. This is a very deliberate. This isn't a bodge. What I've got, look over here. I've got an insulating fish plate there. Now this track's stuck down. This bit isn't. I'm not doing it today, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this insulating fish plate out and temporarily replace it with a metal one. This means when this section of track powers up, the track that way is live. Even though it's only connected via the fish plates, it'll still be live. And the reason for doing that is because I want to get this working, basically. I want it working properly. So I just need the file again on this bit of track. This one's going to get some wiring done to it as well. Because while it's going to have... Well, it could have an out feed. What I'm actually going to do is give it... I could solder one of the joints. I'm soldering them at that end, so I might as well solder them at this end. This inner rail is going to need its own power feed, is essentially what I've got to do. So it's not a massive job, but it needs doing. Right. There. That's that. It's smoothed off. So that piece is going to go there. It's an outer wire, so it's a blue one. So I'm going to get myself a length of blue wire, and this is my usual 1602. Now what I'm going to do is prepare this, and now here you see I can actually cheat slightly as well. I'm going to put power feed in that gap, but I can do that to make it a bit easier. So that's going to go into there. That is going to give me... It'll be on the inside somewhere, so it'll be a power feed hole about there. But I'm going to do the feed before I drill it. So I'll be back in a sec once I've done that. As is another little sped up bit as I fit both of these little excerpts of track. In this case, slightly different reason. Yeah, the microphone battery died, so all the verbiage I was coming out with. I've also sped it up because, as you can see, bits of it were more or less off camera. Gave it run test with a coach. These are in. It's all got to be lifted because it all had to be glued in one lot. So as you can see here, this is the copy decks going down. I'd just keep it clear of the point blades. And after that was put down. alignment checked, a few weights put on it, and then we sort of have a little a quick pan round, and yeah, on to the next bit. Okay, following morning. Well, lunchtime. As the beauty of jobs like this, lunchtimes are perfect for them. Tracks in, sleepers are in. They went in last night. Glue's had a chance to dry. That needs soldering and cutting. Just got to solder the rails there, 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 and there. And I've also put the rest of the tracks in. They're not stuck down yet. They're just there, but that shows the length of the little loco shunt, which I can get 2 locos in. And there to the end is 6 foot, so cope with that. Right, I'm going to get this soldered, and then I'm going to get it cut. So I'm going to put the camera in the stand, and we'll have a look at that doing that. Help if I turn the soldering iron on. There we go. Come on. Right, that'll come up to temperature. What I'm going to do is flux this along here. Now, I've had some people say in the comments, you don't need flux with this. It's flux cord solder. You don't need it. Don't use it. Well, yes and no. Yes, it is flux cord solder. I probably don't need this directly. However, I've found in the past it does make life a lot easier. This is assuming I can actually get the soldering iron to melt the solder. There we go. So start with that one. Now I have been having some problems again with this soldering iron. I don't know whether it's the iron or what that's causing the trouble, but it is working. It's just taking its time. Not helped, obviously, by the fact it's not particularly warm down here at the moment. But there we go. Now, one thing to note, these sleepers are below the rail. The rail head isn't actually touching them. So I'm using solder to fill the gap. Now that is actually intentional. I'm not pressing the rail down. Reason being, I want the rail to stay level. It's that simple, really. So just feed this into the join. The flux helps it flow, and I want it. It needs to be built up, ideally a little bit on both sides, because this is supposed to be a mechanical grip. But a bulge on the outside of the rail is fine. Well, it's not really fine. You don't want it ideally. A bulge on the inside isn't, because it'll get in the way. So before I cut this, I'm going to have to run a wagon over it or a coach and just make sure it's going to work. As you can probably see, I'm having a problem with the blasted wire for the soldering iron. Yeah, getting in the way. Anyway, never mind. Let's do this side as well. Now, obviously, what you've got to do is get the rail hot enough. All of the solder will actually stick to it. And what I've found with some of this rail, it does seem to be a bit variable, some of the Pico rail. Sometimes solder will stick to it. Sometimes it won't. It just really, really, really doesn't want to stick sometimes. And to be honest, that's why I use the flux. It does help clean the surface. Filing it would help significantly as well, but it's quite hard to get a file into the web on the rail. You can do it, but it's not easy. But what you find is the rail just goes a brown colour as whatever coating it's got on it burns. And it doesn't want to take solder. Which is, incidentally, I had a lot of that on my N-gauge layout, and this is why that was done pretty much entirely with power feeds to the bottom of fish plates, which is not ideal. Has to be said, that's not really the way you want to do it. But I didn't have a lot of choice. I just physically could not get solder to melt to a lot of the rails. Just would not do it. To this day, not really sure why. Whether it's some sort of coating or what, I don't know. But literally all that happened was the rail went brown and nothing would stick to it. Right, that's that one. That's that done. That's going to cool slightly while I do the rest of them. And then I'm going to solder these joins here. Now, the reason for doing these fish plates is the power feed from this point, including the frog, is going to power this short stub of track, as I sort of mentioned when I was sticking the track down. So this is, again, a bit of a pain. But it's just introducing a little bit of solder into the rail and the fish plate. Now, obviously, before you solder onto points, be certain you want to solder onto points, if that makes sense. Because now, obviously, removing these points has just been rendered quite a lot more difficult, because obviously now they're soldered. So, yeah. And then again, this little bit here, this is the scary one. This is soldering to a double slip. So this is the one that, if it goes wrong, is expensive. But anyway, never mind. Should be fine. Just move this over here. Again, get that wire out of the way. This is, you can't really... yeah, it's a bit awkward to see what I'm actually doing here, because I've got to get my hand on this side here to see it. Now, obviously, the point really behind doing this, this would conduct quite nicely, actually, through the fish plates. But over time, what you find is fish plates, heat changes, get a bit of expansion, get a bit of contraction. A bit of a larger gap there than I'd have liked, but that's the way it's set up. Yeah, a bit of expansion, bit of contraction. And after that... yeah, that's a plastic one. Must remember, do not solder plastic fish plates. Yeah. Been there, done that. Right, so this one is just this outside. But yeah, over time, the fish plates expand, they contract. And then what you find you've got is bad rail connections. And they can be an absolute swine to chase down. Now, if you don't paint your track, you've got a lot less to worry about. Simple reason being, you can fix it later. It's quite straightforward in that case. But if you're going to paint your track, you're going to have problems. Not massive ones. But it's a lot harder to do this sort of stuff on painted track. Right, that should do. So, soldering iron out of the way. I'm going to grab a coach, which is going to come from one of the trains that's parked at the end. And this is before this is before I cut any rails. I just want to test it runs over. I'm going to use an old trying coach like this because that makes life simpler. And if I do that and that, I can run down and test that one. And then this one here is obviously fairly straightforward to do as well. Hard part's really in the coach. Yep, that works. So the final bit, back over here, that I'm doing for now is cutting this rail, and I'm going to use the cut track next to it as a guide. So here we go. And again, razor saw instead of a rotary tool, it's easier to get a narrow vertical cut, I find, with this. Might need to order some more blades for this at some point. It is cutting, it's just cutting quite slowly. I do find there's a limit to how many rails you can get out of one of these things. Now this is taking a little while because I'm having to go through sleepers as well as through the rail, because obviously I couldn't do what I did of the other joins of making sure the sleepers were either side, because this join's at an angle. So yeah, that's nicely cut both rails. So I'm just going to go through the fiberglass sleepers. Now this is where, if you have the old style PCB sleepers, which are just, it's basically compacted paper, it's very easy to cut. This style are fiberglass, which are a lot harder to cut. I mean, it still cuts it, it just blunts the saw. So let's just get this in here. Yeah, that's virtually through that. Cut through one sleeper, I've just got a little tiny bit of the next one to go through. There we are. And just to make sure the blade does go through there properly. Now, in theory, this means I can do, I can slide the boards apart. In practice, there may be a little bit more glue involved than usual. So I just need to wedge that down there, and then there we are. Boards come apart, be repositioned. Yeah, let's come back together, and then again, check it still works, which is the important bit. There we are, over there nicely. Right, let's have a look. Okay, that's that junction done. The new double slip, like I say, that goes off to the loco stub. This will go to the turntable eventually. I've been umming and ahhing about doing this. I'm not adding that spur yet, nor am I adding this one, which is going to go to the loco coaling siding. Reason being, need to fill this bit in. I need to decide how I'm going to do the coaling siding, which is going to raise up a little bit. The loco spur crosses this. I mean, I could do it. I just need to put another little bit of cork in here because it's going to come through and gently snake its way around. Because that alignment doesn't go straight to the table. It needs to curve a little bit. and there's going to be another signal box here, so I need to work out some spacings, or the box might be a little bit further down there. Anyway, I'm not worked that out yet. But that's the track for effectively this phase. So what we've got, we're coming in, we've got the platforms, we've got the spurs. These are all going to be powered up temporarily via the pointwork. Job done. So that, you can see up here where I've separated the board at that end. The track, these aren't fixed down, so that's fine. But this track ends here because there'll be platform, which can then end. I can have a cross piece of platform. And if we come all the way down here, exactly the same thing. All of this will be platform. It'll run over there. That's a board join. Platform can end there. So that is now it for this video. Hopefully the microphone hasn't given out yet. Yeah. Yes, anyway. But from this end, looks quite good. So, yeah. So this is Thursday. This will be going out Thursday night. The track is now in with its feeds. Friday's job. This is the plan. Friday's job is declutter. This board comes out. I've got a little bit of prep work to do and some cutting over there. And I want to get this board powered up. Ideally back in and tested. And then over the weekend, I'm going to do the same to that lot. So that's the goal. I will catch you Saturday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much and goodbye.